Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your backup host. I'm your interim manager, Cesar Hernandez, here taking over from Luisa Vasquez. He's out traveling God knows where. I'm pretty sure he's in Costa Rica, but it doesn't matter. He's over there. We're over here, and we're here to talk about Mexico's U17s. We're here to talk about Matosas. We're here to talk about Sunday's games, Sunday's exciting games. We're here to talk about Europeos, Juan Carlos Osorio, potentially a little bit about Piojo. I mean, according to from what the guys were saying earlier, Piojo officially going over to Tijuana with Xolos. So we got plenty to talk about. Before we get into that, let's first meet our cast. Let's first meet Jason Marquites, who's over in Philadelphia, who's dealing with a little bit more of cold weather. I guess now that it's officially winter time. Jason, how you doing over there?
I'm good. Yeah, it's we're starting to be real East Coast here, so I'll start to get a little more bitter, a little more East Coasty on the podcast if I can, if that's possible. But yeah, I'm excited. A lot of cool, definitely some big things to talk about over the last couple of days. So it should be a good one.
I'm glad. I just realizing this right now. I don't even know I didn't realize this earlier. But are you wearing blue for Cruz Azul? Are you for the draw? Is that why you're wearing a blue T-shirt right now?
Yeah, I was really pumped for that draw. That really got me excited.
Hey, that could be progress. Then we got Naib Moran, who's over in Mexico City. Hopefully not dealing with too many problems with his internet today. Naib.
No. Very good. Very good, Cesar. Buenas noches, Cesar. Buenas noches, Jason, and to the audience that are watching us at the moment. Yeah, it's been a crazy last hours, with the Matosas news and Atlas. Then now Xolos confirming Piojo Herrera as its new coach, and also the U17s going into their third straight, semifinals in the U17 World Cup. They will face Nigeria, which brings back bad memories from the last U17 World Cup, in which the first match, which was a group stage match, the game finished 6-1 for Nigeria, and in the final it was 3-0 for Nigeria. So this year Nigeria is a powerful team. 17 goals they've scored in this World Cup, and 8 of those have been scored by the number 9. So just one player, and El Tri as a team has scored 10 goals in the tournament. So just think about that a little bit. But the team looks great, and we'll see what happens with Arteaga's team.
Yeah, no, people are saying that this semifinal between Mexico and Nigeria almost seems like that's what the final should be, between these two teams. But before we get into that, though, I'm going to go over to Jason. We were talking about this last week, and we had a little bit of discussion going back and forth with Johnny Rico, going back and forth between us, whether this tournament really is as significant as we make it out to be. I think we all get very excited because it's nice to see young potential talent doing extremely well. But Jason, what are your thoughts? Do you think we're kind of making this tiny tournament involving 16-year-old players, 15-year-old players over in Chile? Are we making this a big deal, or is this truly a significant opportunity? Is this truly massive, what Mexico is doing right now, in their position to get another U17 World Cup title?
Well, for me, like on the big picture, it's a big deal. I mean, like on the scale of looking at what Mexico's doing in the youth ranks, seeing that continuation of youth like progressing through these tournaments and doing really well, it's a good sign for the development of youth in Mexico. But at the same time, individual tournaments, winning this game, progressing from the quarterfinal to the semifinal to the final, it's not that big of a deal for the big picture. It's great for those players, but I mean, look from the basis of someone who is looking at the senior team and wanting the senior team to do well. The individual tournament doesn't really matter because it never seriously translates. But for me, I'm looking at individual players. Because now you're starting to see some of these guys like, okay, I'm looking at this guy. I want to see what happens with this guy. I want to see what happens with this player. I mean, that's what it is for me. I mean, is it a huge deal for Mexico's senior team? Not really, because we don't really know if it's going to translate. But the overall big picture of, like, we're continuing to see success in the youth ranks, that is a big deal, because it means something, that there is this talent filtering through. I think there's still some problems in Mexico when getting that youth and putting it in the right position to succeed when we get to the senior team, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Interesting. Naib, would you say? I mean, Jason was bringing up that there are certain individual players who could potentially, do well in the future. Do you think there are certain individual players that you've recognized, perhaps in this last match, that we could be talking about maybe not in 3 or 4 years, maybe in 7 years, some of these young players. Do you think there's any individual players that you've seen maybe in the knockout rounds? Because I know you've been paying attention to the matches that stand out to you that you think have a potential to stand out.
I think it's important to say something that was written by Barack Feber in a column for a newspaper here, La Afición, part of Milenio, and he wrote an interesting article about how these U17 World Cups usually don't leave that many players that will excel in the future. If we think about it, there's been really few players that have won the Golden Ball in the U17 World Cup and then go on to have successful careers. One of them is Landon Donovan for the U.S. Another one is Tony Cruz for Germany. Another one is Cesc Fabregas for Spain. Those are three examples, precise examples, and that's about it. There's been great African players that have been amazing in this tournament and then don't become a great success story that they were meant to, that they appeared to be in this U17 World Cup. We have Carlos Vela, Giovanni in Mexico that have lived up and down type of careers. With this specific team, I think the one that stands out, I'd say two players stand out. The goalkeeper, Abraham Romero, and the midfielder, Pablo Lopez. I think those are the two players that if they follow the correct steps and they don't think they're the great player if they end up winning this World Cup, if they manage their career step by step, I think those two will be players to keep an eye on from now to perhaps the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. I don't think perhaps there could be something in 2018, but looking forward to the World Cup that will take place in Qatar.
And now we're talking about looking forward. Now, looking forward to this match against Nigeria. If Mexico were to lose against Nigeria, would this be a failure? I know you guys both mentioned, and I know Jason was talking about, perhaps it's more important to see the development of individual players as opposed to winning this tournament. That we'd rather have, players develop and get better and better as opposed to, just winning the tournament. Because winning the tournament, may not mean much going forward. But if Mexico were to, after all the hype, after all the excitement, if Mexico were to lose this Thursday against Nigeria, and that's the semifinal opponent, would we see this as a failure? Jason, do you think this would be a failure from this current squad if they were to lose against Nigeria? Do you think fans should be angry if they were to lose?
No, I don't see why. I mean, I still kind of think of like these are teenagers, and I mean, you have to look at Mexico as an underdog in this match. I mean, what Nigeria has done, the record they have. They're coming in just kind of like a thunderstorm, just bowling people over. So, I mean, I don't know. Mexico loses this. How can you call it a failure? It's a semifinal. They're a final match, arguably playing against the best team. You can't be too upset about that. Obviously, I think form kind of plays into that. I mean, if they go and just get rolled over in the match and lay down, obviously that adds a little bit more to it. But I mean, if it's a competitive match, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, this is the way knockout rounds go. Great team, you lose a game, so be it.
Yeah. Naib, your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to see the specific cases, El Tri played against Australia in the group stage, and that game finished 0-0. Well, Nigeria played Australia in the round of 16, and they put 6 past Australia, and then they went on in the quarterfinals and put 3 past Brazil, quite easily. So in the knockout rounds, they scored 9 goals. I think what Mexico has to do against Nigeria is keep possession of the ball. I think that's one of the fundamental things. Keep possession of the ball and not lose it. Because today against Ecuador in the first half, there was a little bit of a mistake from one of the players in the midfield giving the ball away. So if you do that against Nigeria, you're going to pay. And also one of the things that I want to point out about this team is the set pieces. I think they're really smart on how to do those set pieces from free kicks, from corner kicks. The disadvantage is that in Nigeria they have a lot of tall players, but if they are able to kind of muster in some type of play that requires dedication and practice, then maybe they could get a goal out there. The thing is to keep the game tight from the beginning to at least halftime, because I think if Nigeria scores first, the game looks really problematic for El Tri.
Yeah, for me, I think the key is I think our goalkeeper Romero, who has been fantastic this term. He's been amazing, and if he could potentially carry Mexico, all the way to the final. I think even though forget which game it was during the group stage. It might have been against Australia. It seemed
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he helped keep Mexico afloat. So I think hopefully this guy who's training with the LA Galaxy. I think he is the only player who's currently training in the U.S. Although there are two players who were born in the U.S. on this roster. I think he's a key player here against Nigeria. Nigeria, who as you have mentioned, Nayib, who has been able to beat Mexico in the past in various youth games. So really quickly, let's just do a random guess. Jason, what do you think is going to be the result? Just say it. It doesn't have to be a thorough analysis of what's going to happen. Just what do you think is going to be the result for Thursday's match for Mexico and Nigeria?
Let's go 2-2 with Mexico through in penalties. How about that?
All right, Naive.
I'd say a 2-1 for Mexico in regular time. I think that's the only way. But don't be surprised if it's a little bit of a letdown and you see Nigeria score like 3 or 4. It's just the prowess. And I see a lot of followers make fun of the fact that these players look like they're 25. They don't look like they're 17. But somehow they're there. I just think I don't see FIFA being too easy on that. I mean Mexico didn't go to a World Cup because of the Cachirules in 1990. So I do see that if these guys are there is because they are actually 17 and 16. It's just that they possess certain qualities that make them stand out in these categories. And it's been the case in history. With Nigeria, with Morocco, with Mali right now. That's actually also in the semifinals. These are teams that always are strong in youth teams, but then seem to get lost once it goes to the senior team. Because you see the successes that Nigeria has had, and you would think, well, Nigeria should have already, reached the semifinals in the World Cup, but that hasn't been the case.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, my heart says Mexico's going to win. It's going to be a narrow victory. But my brain says it's going to be a win for Nigeria. I know it's a little unfair because I only let you guys just choose one, but I'm choosing two right there with what my heart says and what my brain says. So my heart says Mexico is going to win. It's going to be spectacular, and after this hurdle, they could easily, win the U17 World Cup title. But my brain says it's going to be very, very difficult for El Tri's youngsters, and they're going to struggle against Nigeria. So, any final thoughts on the U17s before we go over to yesterday's games? Yesterday's really thrilling, exciting games. Any final thoughts from either of you?
Just a little concerning that it was Ulysses Torres. I mean, I think he's played defender. He's played every minute in this tournament. I think he's out in yellow cards for this match, which is not the best considering the Nigerian attack. So that's another point of concern for this match.
No, it's definitely a good point.
One can say that, for example, in this match against Ecuador, they didn't have Francisco Venegas, who had scored 2 goals in the tournament. But then again, I do understand that point, Jason, that you're making because Ecuador is not Nigeria. The prowess attacking wise from Nigeria is way higher than Ecuador. And it was quite remarkable the win today because it looked so comfortable and so passive in a sense from Mexico, considering that Ecuador scored 4 goals against Russia.
Right.
So I mean, it's quite the differences sometimes with these teams are really, really big.
No, it's definitely a good point. I would prefer for Mexico to have their best, but no, that's most definitely a good point to bring up heading into Thursday's match. All right, so looking over into the weekend, it was kind of an average Friday and Saturday for Liga MX, but it was all about Sunday, and like I told you guys, there were only 2 matches yesterday, just 2, not 4, not 5. It was, but I think that was the most entertaining day so far of the Liga MX season. I can't think of another time within. I mean, it's a short season, so it's not that far, or that long. But I can't think of any other day that was more exciting than yesterday. So let's talk about the first match, Toluca 2, America 3. A 3. There was a missed penalty, there was a red card, there was 7 minutes of injury time. It was insane. It was crazy. It was, as someone who didn't really care for either side, just from a fan perspective, it was fantastic to watch. But I'm going to go over to Naib. Naib, your thoughts on the match, your thoughts on the outcome. Maybe tell us, is this a little bit of a preview for the playoffs between Toluca and America right here?
Well, I think it was an interesting match because Toluca was coming into this game with 2 consecutive home wins, and America was coming into the match as probably it is the best visiting side in the tournament so far. Now it sort of has 2 faces. One face in Azteca where it should dominate, but it doesn't. Then it goes out to these stadiums like Nemesio Desk, which I think was a difficult venue for them. And they go on, and I think the first 45 minutes were excellent from America. With the intensity, with the goals that they put in as well, with those Valditos getting one. Ruben Sambuesa returned to the starting 11 after being left out in the last 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. So I think those notes were clear. A little bit worrying in the second half because I think America let Toluca get back into the match quite easily, with Triverio scoring those goals. And actually, in the penalty kick, I think Triverio should have taken that penalty kick and not Uribe, because Uribe was playing awful. He was missing everything, and then you give him the penalty kick and he misses it. I know Hugo Rodriguez did a great stop, but Uribe was not having his day yesterday in La Bombonera. I think the piece that I wrote for ESPN FC. I mean, I think America did show title credentials. But, I think the glass is still half full because what they have shown at Azteca is still not promising compared to what they have been able to show when they're the visiting side.
All right, Naib brings up an interesting point, saying that it looks like they had playoff potential with this result. You've mentioned their away form, which is fantastic. And especially in that intimidating atmosphere, in Toluca, where it looks like the fans are just right up against the field. So, it's very impressive for America. But then again, and I'll go over to Jason, is it do America really look that playoff ready when they could have been seconds away? They could have been, it was just for that penalty kick stop from the backup goalkeeper, Hugo Gonzalez, who stopped it. So do you think that America are truly playoff ready at this point, even though they are struggling at home as well, and they could have just been that that one stop. It could have been a draw, and it could have been a failure after that first half that they had. What are your thoughts on America?
Yeah, I think just like for me, I think they were a bit unlucky to not have a larger lead. I think they took the majority of that game for me, and I think I don't know. I think they are certainly playoff ready. They're one of the best teams, as is Toluca. So it was a tough team. It was a tough match. I don't think everything was going to be beautiful from them. And they always have the ability to concede and kind of get out of placement and give up those sad goals. I don't know. I think the goals were kind of especially the second one that Toluca scored, was kind of just like a hodgepodge mess of a goal for me. The way that ball came in, it was, I don't know. I think it should be called off for a foul too. Because it was just a blatant shove before the final goal there. And certainly I wanted to look at a score because I always love seeing America lose. So for me to say that is really something. But I don't know. I think, I don't know. I wouldn't take for me that match, it neither made me feel great about either team nor made me concerned. It was just kind of okay, 2 good teams played a decent match. They each got each other in different parts of that game. But there's nothing I don't think there's any huge red flags that are popping up, or it's not anything okay, this team looks ready to just blow through everyone. I think both teams have a really good chance of getting the title, but it's not either team is ready to go on some run where nothing is very close either. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, definitely, we'll see. There's still a little bit of time. There's still, even there are only 2 matches left, or 3 matches for some teams. There's still so much room for just so much movement in the league right now. But just talking about Hugo Gonzalez, the backup goalkeeper, Moises Munoz, he went out of the game. It didn't look like it was a very serious injury, but they're going to be tests done tomorrow to see the severity of how bad it is. And let's say it is worse than America thinks it is. Say, he's out for, I mean, even a 1 month is essentially the rest of the regular season. I'm gonna go over to Naive on this. Would America be able to do well without Moises Munoz leading the team in net?
Well, I think that's a good question, Cesar, because I think when we see Hugo Rodriguez, we see a lot of potential from the goalkeeper. But then again, I think the experience that Moises Munoz brings to the table is quite obvious. I think the thing with Moises that makes he provides a lot of comfort to the defenders because he plays well with his feet. And it's able to right away take out the ball. Send the ball out to the forwards. Benedetto loves that, specifically also Rifle Andrade, and from Hugo Rodriguez we don't see that. I mean, I think the factor there is the fact that he really doesn't have a chance to, he hasn't had the chance to have minutes basically, in his career. So when he comes and takes over for someone like Moises Munoz, who has been in El Tri as of late, one can say that Moises is the starting goalkeeper for El Tri as of right now. It's a tough boots to fill. I think Moises has been an integral part of this America that has been in 8 consecutive liguillas. This would be his 8th consecutive liguilla in this 2015 Apertura, and he has been part of the whole kind of this era with Ricardo Peláez. So it will be a big miss if this injury is said that it will be a serious one, but it doesn't look like it will be a serious injury by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's looking like I mean, he said after the game, but he could have just been, trying to boost himself up for the next match. But he said he'd be ready by the next match. But we still don't know the details of the injury. I guess we're going to see tomorrow. That's when they're going to be doing the test.
I think, I mean, for America, I think this isn't a real concern, even if he is out. For me, I don't see this because I think Hugo Gonzalez is overqualified to be a backup. I think he could easily be starting in the league. You think back, I mean, it was a couple seasons ago when Munoz was out for an extended time. I think it was like it was like a motorcycle accident or something like that that he had, and Gonzalez stepped in and played really well. And I think he's been with the team so long, like he's kind of well established there as well. So I mean, obviously it's a step down from Munoz, just obviously from his caliber. But I think that even if Gonzalez had to come in and play some serious time, it's not like a major loss for America. I don't think it's going to have them really concerned.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I don't think he's even that young either. I think he's 25 or something. He's not like a very young kid. I mean, maybe in goalkeeping terms, he might be a little bit younger than some of the other options out there. But he's definitely he's like Jason said, he's been out there for a while. All right. Any other thoughts about Toluca and America before we go over to the match? That was a few hours afterwards, which was Chivas and Pachuca.
Yeah, the Benedetto goal, I think was important. Coming back from the injury, I think it's interesting that the two forwards, Peralta and Benedetto, they still, I think one of them has to find a good streak, scoring streak for America to, go far in the liguilla. And also Quintero's goal was important for the self-esteem and the confidence, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And I think the one thing I want to bring up is that it was good for America, provides momentum, and actually between them and Toluca, that might be the team who needs more momentum because you're looking at the last 2 games. In America, they have to take on Monterrey. Monterrey are going to be home, and then they have playing at the Azteca against Pumas. So it's going to be a tough way to end the season for America right there. While at Toluca, they play against Cruz Azul, which we could potentially talk about later in Mexico City, and then Toluca will host Monterrey as well. So it seems like it's definitely America there who have the harder schedule, to end this season, who might need more points. All right, so let's go over to Chivas Pachuca. We thought that the excitement was going to be over after that morning game. How could anything top that? That was a ridiculous match. And then Chivas and Pachuca must have seen that match and just thought, like, yeah, let's try to compete with that. Maybe it'll be just as exciting. Maybe we'll have more goals. And it ended up in a ridiculous 4-4 draw for the sides. And it was I don't even know what to make of it, to be honest. As a Chivas fan, as someone trying to follow the game. But I'm going to go over to Jason this question. I mean, Chivas, they had the lead. They had a 3-1 lead, which no one would have ever predicted by halftime. And then they ended up drawing, finding a draw at like 4-4 after 90 minutes. Would you say that this is a loss for Chivas? Would you say that, like, even though it's each team gained 1 point in the end, is this something? Is this truly feel like a loss, for Almeida and the rest of the Chivas squad?
I think it was a loss. I don't think it was a loss because they had the 3-1 lead. I think it was a loss because each of these teams, I mean, Chivas and Pachuca, I think each needed to get this win. I mean, each of them are right on that cusp where they really need to start cementing wins here in order to guarantee a Liga place. I mean, both of them are looking like a stretch at this point. They each have a game in hand, but they're still pretty far way out of locking anything down. So 3 points would have made for Chivas would have made it realistic, and now it's a little bit more of a long shot. So I mean, that's a loss. I mean, as far as the way the game played out, I mean, I think losing the 3-1 lead, I think the whole match was like a comedy of errors. It was like,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it would have been better to just drop all sound out of the game and have it like insert like a soundtrack out of like some silent movie, like slapstick kind of comedy, like maybe leaving like Three Stooges like sounds into it, because it was just ridiculous. Like I don't know what was going on. Like there was just bizarre defending. Like just people were just allowed so much room to take shots. It was just like, I don't even know what was going on with Conejo back there. Like it was
Oh,
just,
poor Conejo, man. Poor Conejo. I mean, like,
oh
I'm
man.
pretty sure I have to double check this because sometimes I just love to throw random stats out there because my Twitter feed is just 80% stats and 20% jokes, maybe a little bit more jokes. But I'm pretty sure that Conejo made his debut in the league before Angel Zalivar, the player from Chivas, was even alive. And it was just fascinating to see this kid score twice against Conejo. And Conejo, he really should have done a better job. He literally had a touch on all those shots. And I, not saying that it was his fault that for letting in that many goals, but I feel like he could have done a better job in that match. Yeah, Jason, like you said, it was ridiculous to watch that. Naib, your thoughts on the 4-4 and Conejo and
No, I
Chivas'
think
backup player.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of ironic that we see Pachuca, and they have this old goalkeeper, but at the same time they have some of the youngest, best young talents in Mexico. With
Yeah.
Chucky and Guti, and Pizarro. Those are the three that stand out. It's quite ironic with that. But I think what was interesting in that match was when Matias Almeida took off Marco Fabian because he was already thinking about the Copa MX final that will take place on Wednesday against León, and he put in another attacking midfielder, Chofis Lopez. Maybe it would have been more prudent and maybe a little bit more defensive to put a central defensive midfielder, to add more support to the defenders, because if I recall correctly, Salcido was a center back in that game.
Yeah, he was.
Correct?
Yeah.
So I mean that
Some worries
already
on him
adds.
back there, but yeah.
Yeah, that's not the one. You don't want Salcido as a center back against Chucky, Guti, and Pizarro, and even Franco Jara, who has been doing great in the last games, the Colombian forward. So in the regard of spectacularity, 8 goals, and both teams were going at each other basically, nonstop. It was delightful, but there were a lot of mistakes and errors, specifically Aquivaldo Mosquera, Rafa Ramos from ESPN Deportes calls him Tronquivaldo. He plays like a tronco, or, like basically doesn't do anything anymore. It's like a tree just standing there, and they just pass by him, by the tree. So I just think that it's interesting with Pachuca. I think that the defense for Pachuca hasn't been that good throughout the whole season. I mean, it was Miguel Herrera Aquivaldo Mosquera, and Hugo Rodriguez. I think he got a goal yesterday. But the two, Herrera and Hugo Rodriguez, were actually called up by the national team by Miguel Herrera, El Piojo. But they haven't been able to cement their professional careers in Liga MX, as has been the case, for example, with Carlos Salcedo, who was being scouted by Benfica yesterday.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an excellent point. But at the same time, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but I mean, we look at the standings right now. Chivas, they have 18 points, and they're in 12th place. Pachuca, they're in 13th place, and they also have 18 points. And both teams still have an extra game to play. So, either team can still, with that extra match to play, they could still move up the standings. And next thing we know, we could be talking about them in the postseason. We could be talking about the potential they have, maybe the potential for some of those, youngsters from the Pachuca side to do extremely well. But you definitely make a good point, Nate, with saying that the defense has been a little worrying. And now that we've seen this performance from Conejo Perez, who's about 8,000 years old, he's actually 42, but he was showing his. It's unfortunate because I feel a little weird about Conejo Perez just because of his history with the World Cup and whether he should have started or not. But it's extremely impressive what he's still doing at this age. But I felt like he was showing all 42 years of his age in Sunday's match because, like I said, he had a hand on all those goals. I think on maybe three of the four goals he had an opportunity to block them, but he just looked a little off out there. But we could go on to the extra game and talking about Chivas taking on Atlas and go into some Atlas talk. But before that, any other final thoughts about Chivas and Pachuca?
I'll just say, the road for Chivas is easy after this. I mean, they do the Clásico Tapatio. They host Santos in the Omni Life, and their only trip out of Guadalajara is to go to Sinaloa to play Dorados. So, I mean, it's an easy schedule the rest of the way. Those 3 games, they could get a lot of points out of those 3 games and make a run at it. But it's still, they're going to have to get a lot of points out of those 3 games in order to qualify.
Yeah, that's definitely an excellent point.
I would say 2 wins. They get the win against Dorados, which I think Morelia just got a win against Dorados, right? It was at
it's
Sinaloa.
4-0. Yeah, that was an easy game for Morelia. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, when Almeida came in, Chivas was getting win after win after win, and then all of a sudden there was this kind of stall, a little bit of a break there, and hopefully they can pick up the steam again. Now, what was impressive in this game yesterday is that other forwards scored that were not named Omar Bravo. I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, most definitely. And then one quick thing I want to touch on for Pachuca is, and I've talked about this in my articles for the past couple of weeks, but when Nahuel Pan was injured, I thought that was the end of the season for Pachuca. But now Franco Herrera has definitely stepped up. He now has 6 goals in his last 4 games for Pachuca, and he could potentially, in these last 2 games, it would not surprise me, surpass the amount of goals Nahuel Pan has already scored for Pachuca. He's been lethal for that team. So who knows? Maybe Pachuca could make that late run. The playoffs are all about finding that momentum right before you enter them. And if you have those couple of wins right before the start of the postseason, you could, you never know how well you could do. So all I'm saying is just to keep an eye on Pachuca. I'm not saying they're gonna make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're gonna do well, but just keep an eye on them because Franco Jara could be pushing that team forward. That Argentine striker who's replaced Nahuel Pan and could potentially do better for the side. So talking about Chivas, talking about their makeup game they're gonna have in 9 days against Atlas, and who knows how Atlas will be by then because as of today, Atlas no longer have Gustavo Matosas in charge, and they said you're seeing the reports are saying that it was mutual between these two sides. Do we really think it's mutual? Do we really think that because it'd be a little weird if Atlas were to let go of Matosas with only 3 games left, and with still a possibility to make it into to the postseason. So we'll go over to Jason. Jason, do you really think that this is a mutual termination from both sides? Do you think maybe it's just Matosas, once again being just tired and he just wants to leave another club?
Oh, it's hard to say, but I doubt. I mean, if we're talking about mutual in the respect of like a 50-50, everyone's happy and shake hands and move on, I doubt it was that situation. I imagine there was a little bit of probably some sort of a disagreement and unhappy conversation that took place between Matosas and management, I would assume. I I don't know. You get the sense that Matosas never really found his footing there. He didn't have a lot of time to find that footing, but it's a surprising time, like you mentioned, at this time in the season for him to be let go. Although I'm not completely surprised that it didn't really work out either.
No, that's definitely good. I mean, people were saying that perhaps there were some rumors with some problems in the back room. Maybe he wasn't getting along with the ownership. Maybe, Naib, your thoughts on Matosas leaving? Do you think it was Matosas once again just getting tired of his situation? Maybe he was having problems, or maybe it was Atlas wanted to get rid of him. My original, not original theory, but I had the funny joke that I thought maybe they're going to chase after Piojo, but obviously it's not the case anymore. But your thoughts on Matosas no longer being a part of Atlas?
One point to bring up right now is that I think when we heard that Matosas was going to Atlas, and Atlas was getting interesting players, one of them was Vergesio, the forward that was coming from Italy. We thought, well, maybe Atlas could potentially be one of the surprises in the season, because there was going to be money put into the team. And let's keep in mind, they got Ponchito Gonzalez there. They got Fideo Alvarez, who are two talented U22 players for El Tri's national team. So the team did look complete. It did look like a competent team that could, compete in Liga MX. But I think as the season went on, I just thought that it would have been better for Matosas to have taken a season off, or after the America spell, because America spell just was all crazy as well. It was up and down basically, trying to prove that he could actually win a title, and he did win one, the Champions League. But right away to go to another project and expect to give results right away, I think that was a little bit challenging. Let's keep in mind that the success with Matosas and León came because he was there even since second division.
Yeah.
It was a long process. With Gallito, with Gullit, with Chapito. He brought him up basically. He discovered Gallito Vasquez while he was playing in some random club in Guanajuato. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Celaya. But it took time. It wasn't going to happen right away. And that's been the mistake that has happened in America. Matosas in America. America's going to play brilliant, like a Ferrari, like they were saying, crazy stuff. And that was all just blah, blah, blah. And it takes time. But, as we know in Mexican football, there's really no patience. There's, if you're not giving results, there's going to be some friction there. And coaches will be thrown out the house basically.
No, most definitely. There was no patience at all whatsoever. But I still think that I'm still convinced that it was, mostly Matosas who had the little patience. I think maybe Atlas really went through with this, and I still think it would be foolish. Like I said, there are only 3 games left. And this is also 9 days before the Clásico Tapatío. 9 days before the Clásico Tapatío. And they're going to put in an interim manager. So I'm still convinced that it was Matosas who really wanted to push to move away from the squad, because it just seems like such a foolish decision, from the Atlas ownership to do away with the manager. And now it's going to be Hugo Castillo, who is the under-20 manager, who's going to be interim coach for the side. So, are there any names? I know Naive, you were talking about potentially a name that could, or a couple of names that could be potentially replacing Matosas. Maybe not in the near future, because right now they have Hugo Castillo, but perhaps for the next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think Mexican clubs, they're seeing what happened in Chivas. They brought up Matias Almeida from a coach that had been coaching over there in Argentina second division, and also River Plate, and it's working out. So right now one of the names it's Diego Coca, an Argentinian coach, that could be an option for Atlas. And today I actually read something. Pasarela, who was the coach of Rayados back in the day, and then went back to Argentina to River Plate to do some director stuff. So that's another possibility. I mean, we don't know. I mean, keep in mind, Atlas is owned by TV Azteca, and by the looks of it, TV Azteca has given more attention and more money towards Atlas, and the bad child has been Morelia, as of late. So all the bad players go to Morelia, all the good players go to Atlas. So we'll see what project they have in mind with the new coach.
And the bad child that won 4-0. I mean, it was against Dorados. I don't know what you could really make of that. But the bad child that had the biggest win of the weekend right there. So, I mean, the bad child who perhaps they're doing a little bit better right now, but not in the whole big perspective.
I think Atlas should go for Bielsa, right? Isn't he still available?
You know what? Let's start the rumor.
Should we start that?
Let's start the rumor. We can say exclusive. Bielsa texted Jason last night, said that he was interested maybe in visiting Guadalajara. Wink, wink.
Lo viste el Mexican soccer show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's just roll with it and see if anybody will take that out there.
Another option, they could just wait keep the interim until March or so when Chivas fire Almeida and just scoop him right up. He could just stay just move over in Guadalajara. That would be
Vergara was on TV and earlier yesterday or today saying I had full faith, blah blah blah. He's gonna stay. And apparently Bravo's gonna stay for a while too. We'll see that. All right. Any other final thoughts on Matosas? Matosas and his short tenure with Atlas. Maybe where he's gonna go next. Maybe he will take that year off.
He should go back to Senso and just find a team and just bring him up again. He'll be that guy who just brings teams up to Liga MX and then go back to Senso and do it again. That's his thing,
I like it. All right, so really quickly, we were talking about this beforehand, and apparently we have some confirmation. I'm going to believe you guys because I didn't actually look at Twitter myself. I'm going to believe you guys that Piojo, he's going over to Xolos from coaching El Tri to taking a little bit of a break. Now going to be going over to Tijuana. Thoughts on this? Is it a good fit for, just really quick, is it a good fit for Piojo? Is it a good fit for Tijuana? I mean, for me, if we're going to get my perspective really quickly, it seems like Piojo could do something a little bit bigger, but I think this is fantastic for Tijuana. I'm going to go over to Jason really quickly. Your thoughts on Piojo potentially going to the border town, Tijuana?
That's a great hire, for sure. Tijuana has been we make fun of Chivas with the way they blow through managers, but Tijuana's been a mess since Mohamed left. Just every few months, just replacing the manager and just haven't gotten it right since then, really. It's been a little messy. So getting someone with the solid track record, Piojo, him coming in there, just his big personality fits with the big personality of that club. I could see him really, as much as Tijuana wants to cater to the U.S. fans, Piojo would certainly work in that regard as well. It makes a lot of sense. And obviously he brings an idea. He brings something that at least a lot of people in Mexico recognize, in his tactical approach can work well with certainly just thinking about some of the talent already in Tijuana. So it makes a lot of sense, yeah.
The American fans love Piojo. You saw that stuff about people pushing for Piojo to come to MLS and coach an MLS team. So yeah, he could be a fantastic. He is going to be fantastic for the club. But like I mentioned, Naib, how is this for Piojo though? Could Piojo could have done something bigger? Is this really a good opportunity for him, or does he need this?
I think the thing is with Piojo, he got a lot of global attention. I think in the World Cup, it wouldn't sound crazy if he did have the opportunity to go somewhere else and test his coaching abilities. Because then again, he's returning to his comfort zone, which is Liga MX. And he's returning with a club that I think is really interesting, really attractive. What Xolos has done in a short period of time in its history, I think it's worth recognizing over and over again. I think what they did in the Libertadores with Turco Mohamed was special. And then since then it kind of dropped a little bit. And also the players that have come in haven't been so kind of impressive in a way. They do have Arango. They do have Leighton Jimenez, who I think is one of the top center backs in Liga MX. Auche, Gabriel Auche, Dairo Moreno.
Auche's kind of
yeah, but actually Auche has picked up his games ever since Romano left. So there you can say that there was some debate there, or some friction and collision of ideas between the two, and they just didn't agree. But Cholos is an interesting club. I think it does things different from the rest of other Mexican clubs, and I think they have to reignite. I think that idea, and also give a chance to the youth players. For example, Lahut. I think Lahut should already be a starting goalkeeper instead of Villar. Or let's see if Fernando Arce's young son that's in the youth teams, it's a good caliber. Arriola, see a little bit of him. I think there's a good pool of players that need a little bit of that piojismo motivation that he brings to the table, and it wouldn't be surprising to see Cholos in the Liguilla next season for sure.
Yeah. No, and I think especially with the identity of the team, I think that whole Mexican American kind of perspective, I think that could be very, very powerful. And like you said, it's just something that other teams aren't really doing. So I mean, we'll see what Piojo can do. I feel like he could find a lot of success, and if anything, there's going to be a lot of attention for the team now. There's going to be much more attention now with Piojo there. And of course, you're going to get those fans probably just paying tickets, probably some American fans, maybe just Mexican fans too, paying tickets just to watch Piojo on the sidelines, just to see what he does, just to see if he's actually more entertaining than the actual match itself.
Just at the very least, you'd expect it just to be a longer tenure. Right, like he's not going to be someone that Cholos are just going to drop right away if they don't get immediate results. Like he's going to outlast a little bit of that a bad luck in the carousel. So bring a little bit of consistency to the club and start to build towards something over like maybe a calendar year, hopefully.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we'll see. But like we mentioned, there's a lot of Liga MX teams going to be extremely fickle with their managers. Let's go over really quickly to the Europeos. Naib, what stood out to you this week? And I know we got a goal from Chicharito, we got a goal from Guardado. Last week we got a debut from Polido. What stood out to you recently in the Europeo news?
Well, I think the Chicharito goal is impressive. I think because I know the Bayer Leverkusen lost against a good Wolfsburg team that's in Champions League as well. And they have great players like Shirley. That stand out basically in that German club. But it's good to see Chicharito getting the goals. I was reading an interview with the coach Schmidt from Leverkusen, and they asked him, "Why did you bring Chicharito?" And the first thing that he said, "For goals. What else? We brought him for him to keep scoring goals and understand this idea of it's high pressing, really intense on the attack." So it's a little bit more. I think the idea of football, it's a little bit more intense than in Real Madrid or even in United. And this sounds crazy, but that's how Leverkusen plays. It's really all attack, and that's why it suffers so much in defense, unfortunately. So I mean, I think that's one of the points. Another one. Real Sociedad lost against Celta de Vigo. But I think Carlos Vela is showing glimpses of the best Vela version. And this actually is important right now because as the qualifiers approach and thinking that Juan Carlos Osorio will use a 4-3-3, I think Vela is really good, will be a good asset to have in up front with the three forwards. But we'll see in time. We'll see the next game how everything goes. Jonathan Dos Santos also played in Villarreal's win over Sevilla in La Liga, and I think that was an important win for Villarreal because last season they couldn't get a win against Sevilla. It was a tough team to beat. But now they got the win, and they got 20 points out of 30 points in the first 10 weeks of La Liga. So I think it's impressive for Jonathan Dos Santos' team. Jonathan Dos Santos is getting more starts more often.
No, I think Jonathan Dos Santos, he's been when he has been given those opportunities, he's done very well. There was a Europa League match against, I forgot who it was. It was a recent, I think it was the most recent Europa League match, and I think that's the best I've seen Jonathan Dos Santos play the whole year. He looked fantastic. I think that was the best the first 45 minutes he played in that match were extremely effective, and I think in that match, Juan Carlos Osorio was watching him as well. So that was good to see. Yeah, as you mentioned, Chicharito had that goal. We had Andres Guardado, who scored the golazo.
Yeah, golazo.
The golazo. It was a free kick for PSV. PSV, I believe, we're taking on. I should know this, but the last place team in the Eredivisie, and they just dominated them. And Guardado was out there, and he had the free kick goal. And this was actually just a few days after Moreno actually got a goal for PSV as well in the KNVB Cup, which is a domestic cup. Let's see, what else did we have? Yeah, you mentioned Vela. Jimenez, what are your guys' thoughts on Jimenez? I'm going to go to Jason this. Jimenez, he looks like he's still struggling. I mean, he's getting more minutes for Benfica, but he's still only scored one goal, and I believe that goal was in August. And I think he's done very well with the national team, but do you still think, Jimenez should be a starting striker for Mexico? Maybe in that 4-3-3 formation we should consider someone different other than Jimenez, or do you think he's still, even with his bad club form, he still justifies a spot in that starting lineup?
I think so. I think I'm just happy he's getting minutes at the moment. It's not looking great when he's not getting the goals and things like that. But I mean, what I've seen him play, he's been playing well, and I still have the utmost confidence in him to be a really important key player for Mexico going forward. I just think he's so immensely talented, and I think he does work well with those other players around him. So I think he's really important for Mexico. I think it's important that he continues to get minutes in qualifiers and to work with the other Mexican strikers.
No, that's definitely a good point. I think, yeah, no, it's just interesting, just because I feel like he does do very well with the national team, and you could tell that, whether it's with Benfica or Mexico, he works extremely hard. The problem is with Benfica, and you can see, like, I follow some of, like, the Twitter accounts, from there's like the Benfica podcast, and there's like these English language accounts, and you can see that they're all very skeptical of him. They're all wondering whether he should be starting in front of, I believe, Mitroglou, which they think should be getting more minutes instead of Jimenez. But who knows? Maybe because he had 2 starts in a row in the Portuguese league, so because of that, maybe he will start, gain a little bit more confidence and eventually find that second goal. But
they play Galatasaray tomorrow in Champions League. So
there you go.
We'll see if he can get some minutes there and get a goal. And then, of course, the Roma Bayer Leverkusen on Wednesday, and then Tel Aviv against FC Porto. The Roma Bayer is an interesting game on Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. After that last Champions League match between those two teams, who knows how many more goals? I mean, Bayer Leverkusen. Let's just give them this: is that awful defense. I don't know what to make of the midfield, but man, those games have just been so high scoring, and Chicharito has been scoring plenty. So, it's good for Mexico fans at least. Like, well, who cares if Bayer is struggling and allowing a lot of goals if that means that Chicharito's still scoring, and it's a highly entertaining match. Really quickly, Rafa Marquez, he scored an own goal last week while Juan Carlos Osorio was watching him from the stands, and it looks like from what Tom posted online, it looks like Rafa Marquez got an injury as well. So, and it looks like he might be out for the next couple of matches for El Tri. Nothing confirmed yet, but it looks like we might be missing Rafa in the next 2 matches for Mexico. Like I said, nothing confirmed just yet, but that's what Tom posted on Twitter earlier today. And then
that's just a positive for Mexico. I
think it depends on who you ask.
Rafa's a great player, but like Mexico is now entering the qualifying stage, and like, for qualifying, you should be thinking about who's going to play in the next World Cup. You'd be playing those players. So, like, you don't want Rafa Marquez in there. I'm sorry. Like, it's better if he's not playing.
That's my argument as well. I've always said that, like, Rafa has to recognize that we need to incorporate the new players. We need to incorporate the younger players, because he's not going to be playing in the next World Cup. If he is, I don't know what's... let's not even give that any credence. He's not going to be playing in the next World Cup. So I feel like we should be looking towards these new and younger players, but at the same time, Rafa, he still exceeds expectations every now and then, and he sometimes looks like Mexico's best player. So it's tough. It's tough to say, but I mean, I personally, I'm not saying good job that you got injured, Rafa. I don't care about you. Get out of here, man. No, like I don't want to say that, but at the same time, this will hopefully give some opportunities for other players.
And we're talking about injuries. He's reaching an age where the injuries are becoming more common, especially the muscle injuries. Because this would be his second or his third muscle injury in the season. And I think it's the same region of the leg where he tends to get those injuries. So he's aging. He's aging. I mean, it's at one point he's not gonna be having the same, physical capabilities, and being at a high stamina that a footballer should have, And I think it does put Osorio in a position to try things, looking ahead, I think, and I do see El Tri having players to kind of, take over his place. If he was thinking about putting Marquez as a central defensive midfielder in the 4-3-3, then that's a great opportunity for a player like Jonathan to check it out, and hopefully it works out so it doesn't look like, oh, Marquez is not here and blah blah blah. No, I think they're capable players to take over that role.
I mean, personally, I still like the Gallito center mid, Jonathan Dos Santos right mid, and then Andres Guardado left mid in a three-man midfield. I'm more than happy to go through with that for the rest of until the World Cup. Until someone else steps up, I would be more than happy with that. Really quickly, Alan Pulido, if you guys remember him. He made his debut for Olympiacos last week in a Greek Cup match. That might be the last we hear of him as well. So just throwing that out there. Pulido made his debut. So to end the show, we got a few minutes left. We talked about the Champions League matches. We talked about really quickly the Copa MX final, which is going to be happening on Wednesday between Chivas and Leon. But let's talk about Juan Carlos Osorio's list, which will be coming out soon. We've heard that it's going to be 1 week from now, November 9th, but also Naib was telling us earlier in our little group chat that he shared an article with us that said that it might come out this week.
Yeah, this week, Thursday, I think.
I mean, so we might see that come out this week as well. So, I mean, either way, the list is going to be coming out soon. So I'm going to put both of you guys in the spot. Is there a certain player? Like, I'm just going for either a surprise addition or a surprise omission. Like, who do you think will be one of the more noteworthy additions to the roster? Who do you think will be? You can choose one or two or both. I don't care. Or who do you think will be a surprise player that will be missing from this upcoming roster? And I'm going to go over to you, Naib. Or you could also say that it's going to be the same exact roster. But your thoughts?
I got two surprises in my mind. I haven't heard. I think what he saw yesterday in the Chivas Pachuca, I think Chucky played amazing football. And I think Chucky, what he did in the Olympic qualifiers over here in the States a couple of weeks ago was fantastic as well. Because he's not even in the U22 level. You could still consider him at the U20 level, and he was the best player in the tournament. I think Chucky Lozano is a player that it's interesting for Juan Carlos Osorio because he likes playing with two wings in the attack. Basically the striker with two wings on the sides, and I think Chucky fits perfectly there on the left or on the right. So I think Chucky Lozano will be there, and Carlos Salcedo. I think those two will be the quote-unquote surprises, I'd say, from Osorio. And omissions, you can say Giovanni Dos Santos could be a surprising omission, but I think that there are better forwards in Mexico right now, thankfully, surprisingly, than Giovanni Dos Santos. I mean, we were talking about Raul Jimenez, that even though he hasn't been able to score, I think he's shown a great level. Chicharito, Vela, Tecatito, and now even Chucky Lozano is added to the mix. So I mean, it's a big pool of players in the forward position, and that's a good news actually for Mexican football, because it seems to be this idea like, oh shoot, we don't have forwards, but right now we have at least 6 that could fill the role perfectly.
No, that's entirely true. That's definitely entirely true. Jason, any thoughts on surprise addition, surprise player missing? Maybe we're gonna see the same stuff. Thoughts?
I could see Pizarro coming back in, Rodolfo Pizarro, also in the Pachuca roster, making his way back into the roster. And it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen with the goalkeeper. I think it's kind of really up in the air at this point too. So whether it's Orozco making his way back into the roster, or maybe there's just some kind of a wild card out there. We'll see.
Picolín?
You never know.
Secretly.
You never know.
It's kind of a joke, but after every match, you're like, dude, he's doing really well, isn't he? He's doing really well back there. And then with maybe Munoz is going to be injured,
Right. I mean,
Chuy Corona is going to be out for 6 months, but I mean, not that he's really in the conversation anymore, but yeah.
with this short amount of time, you'd think there's not going to be a ton of changes. I don't think Osorio is going to come in and just completely flip the national team roster, but
Yeah.
with the state of the goalkeeper, it could really go in a lot of directions at this point.
Yeah, no, that's entirely true.
Something to keep in mind when this is happening, when this is going on, basically, is that El Salvador is in a huge turmoil. There's the players in a strike. I saw the probable list that will go to Mexico, and the team is basically like a C team. Like there's no international players there. I know that international players that play in Europe want to play this game. But there's this whole deal of economic gifts or whatnot. So we might be seeing a really, really bad El Salvador team go to Azteca, and it should be a victory like the New Zealand one with Piojo Herrera a couple of years ago. So I just think that it will be important for Osorio to get a win on the 13th. It's Friday the 13th, so it's kind of scary. Also, November where Osorio is not the coolest day to have the debut, but that's the calendar. So I mean, we'll see how that goes. But El Salvador doesn't look that solid at the moment. With this kind of bad news going on.
Although at the same time, really quickly, I want to bring up is that I've heard people say that Osorio, he likes rotating players, he likes rotating his roster. And that recognizing that Mexico is going to have that match at home at the Azteca with all the problems with El Salvador, that he might not put his best options available. That he might choose a few fringe options for that match and then save his best for the away match just 4 days later against Honduras. So that's something to keep in mind. We don't. Yeah. I think right now we have a lot of questions about Osorio, what he's going to do, because we're all basing this off of what he's done for multiple clubs in the past. This is the first time he's going to be in charge of a national team. Maybe he'll change his ways, maybe it'll stay the exact same, but people have said, and multiple interviews have said that he likes rotating his players. I think even Santiago Baños said that too. That he did. Yeah, he says he likes rotating his players. So we'll see what happens in that first match. For me, I guess for the surprise edition, I think I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's probably highly unrealistic. I was writing about this, but I think maybe Lalo Herrera might make a comeback. He scored 9 goals for Puma so far this season. He's done extremely well for that team, who has been fantastic, in the league. And maybe with Gio now done with his season with the Galaxy, and when Lalo scored over the weekend, Osorio was at that match. Maybe he might be a little convinced to bring him up and not consider him as a starter, but maybe consider him as a backup option. Someone who brings some. I personally am not a big fan of Lalo Herrera for national team opportunities, but he offers something different. We have these technical guys. More like a Vela, Tecatito-ish kind of players, but he's this tall striker who could be a reference point at the very top, and throw in a few crosses and see what happens with Lalo Herrera. Like I said, it's not my favorite option, but
there was another Pumas player that caught Osorio's eye, if I'm not mistaken, is Fuentes, right?
Fuentes, yeah. There are rumors that he might be making a call up in defense. So
yeah.
We'll see if he'll make it as well. But yeah, no. Let's see. We talked about U17s. We talked about the Sunday matches, Matosas, Piojo, Europeos, Osorio. I think we're done, guys. Any final thoughts before we end the show? Jason, nothing. Anything? About it could be. It doesn't even have to be soccer related. It doesn't even have to be soccer related.
Well, I will say that this coming weekend there's a couple of cool matches to look out for. So that's soccer related. And Vucetic is taking the Gas Blancos to Pumas on Sunday. So that should be a really good one. and Mohamed is going to see America visit Rayados on Saturday night, so that
There
should
you
be
go.
interesting as well.
Good stuff. Definitely some stuff to follow. I'll be following that a little bit more after it's my birthday weekend, so I was a little it's a little on and off of watching these games.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's an interesting point that Jason brings up. Querétaro, it's that team that is warming up right at the exact time, right before Liguilla, and they got Rey Midas, they got Vucetich, so it's that guy does magic. And I think if they get the win at CU, that will be 3 consecutive wins against America, Rayados, and Pumas. I mean, those are stacked teams basically. I mean, Rayados, we know Rayados is on the downfall, but they're still a really stacked team with Edwin Cardona, Dorlan Pavon, and Funes Mori. So I think it will be a big statement from Querétaro if they get the win on Sunday.
No, most of I think Querétaro have always been a top 8 team for me, and right now they're right there. They're just one spot behind. They're in 9th place right now. So there's still so much time for them to make that last second run, and they could do well in the playoffs again.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Or was that your final thought, Naive?
Yeah, it was the final thought. I mean, Jason's also a Liverpool fan, so he must be happy with Jurgen Klopp over there.
Yeah, the normal one.
It's weird for one of my teams to be filled with hope, and I'm kind of excited for the future. It's not like all doom and gloom at the moment. So I'm pretending like the Liga MX season isn't really going on, or I don't really have a team, and just kind of focusing on the Premier League right now.
I mean, at least you have the weekends. You have that
there's a little bit of joy. Yeah.
In the morning, you have the morning to kind of be happy, get a good start to your day, and then you just cry at night with all those gruesome stool matches.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks to everyone on the chat. One more thing from me. If you're interested in joining the Mexican Soccer Show team, we're looking for someone to help us out. If you go on our Twitter page, I mean, if you scroll down, I'll probably post it once more tonight. I'll post a link where you can, where I mentioned where you can send us an email and your resume just to send us over, because we are looking for someone to help us out. I mean, we could. It's not paying, so I'm sorry. But then again, we aren't getting paid either. So it would be different if we were actually getting paid. But but it'll be a fun opportunity. You can hang out with us. You can, I personally think it would be a good opportunity. But yeah, that's the most I could make of it.
Quite a sell job.
Without getting down on my knees, being like, please help us out, please. Yeah, thanks to everyone. Thanks for joining the chat. Be sure to subscribe to our show. If you're watching right now on YouTube, just click on that little red box to subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at the Mexican Soccer Show. Follow us on Twitter at Mex Soccer Show. And then until then, we'll see you next week. I'll be interim manager for just one more week. So until after that, then we'll have Weasel back with his cool little graphics in the background. All right, so thanks everyone. Yeah, the TV. Hey, it's cool to me. All right, thanks everyone, and we'll see you around.